I came out of what's called movement conservatism. I started reading at 15 years old, William Buckley, watching Firing Line. And though there are some people here that remember those shows on ETV, started taking National Review as a 17-year-old student. I started learning principles that should apply to government. Personal responsibility. The nature of government that tends to want to be excessive and extreme takes away freedom. So therefore we must keep government under control. We must resist government and allow for the impulses of entrepreneurship at every turn. I was a Kemp supporter, for instance, when he ran for president. One time I called Carroll Campbell. Remember, Carroll was just one of our outstanding congressmen, asking the simple question, how do you stay consistent? It was virtually the same question. How do you know what to do with all the things coming at you? And he was nice enough to return a phone call because I was just getting into politics myself as a city councilman. One answer, he said. When he called me back here, he said, David, what you have to do is realize that everything coming at you are like bullets. You say no to everything unless the case can be overwhelmingly proven from a conservative perspective. And if it's affordable, then you can take the next step forward. That's basically the standard that I'm going to go by. And if I find myself deviating from what this district believes, I will quit. I will not resist the district. But that's not going to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
The gist of the question is, what are you going to do to help rebuild the trust? Because it's obvious we people don't trust the government at this point. First thing you have to do is hold true to your principles. I'm running on a platform as a Republican, as a conservative, and we stand for some things. We have to acknowledge the big problems that we have in front of us. The quickest way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. We have to shrink the size of government. There are far too many things the government is involved in. So what I'm going to do to help rebuild the trust is I would like to promote some legislation that requires us to examine every agency of government and take it back to the enabling legislation that brought that agency into being, and find out all the things that those agencies are doing that are inconsistent with their enabling legislation, and begin there to reduce the size of the federal government. But I'm also going to do another thing. I'm not going to vote on bills that I have not read. And if I get pressure from the leadership, I'm going to point out to them that I ran on a condition that I'm not going to vote on bills I haven't read. So if you can't figure out a way to give us time to read these bills, then I'm going to point out all the things when I get to reading it as to why you were trying to jam it through. I'm here to represent we the people. I don't make any bones about the fact that I'm a Republican, but it's time that we put principle over party and America first over everything else.
Thank you. And Representative Inglis.
You know, I was first elected in 1992, served 6 years, and was out 6 years. The best part about that is the perspective you get from sitting in the audience and watching the stage. And then came back to Congress in 2004. The first 2 years I was in Congress, we were in the minority. And then we took the majority in 94. When I got back to Congress in 2004, starting in 2005, our majority was unrecognizable to me. A friend took me to lunch. He said, listen, Bob, here's the deal. If you want a seat on Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, or Appropriations, you need to give that to the National Party. If you want a chairman's gavel on a subcommittee, you need to give that. And if you want a full committee chairman gavel, the price is that. All the numbers were 6 figures. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, what was necessary in this pay-to-play system. It's like in The Lion King, when the jackals took over the kingdom. That's what it was like in going back to Congress in 2005 and 2006. We lost the majority in 2006. Now what we're going to do is prove to the American people that we can listen and that we're ready to accept a contract from America. Dick Armey's right, we really don't have the credibility to propose a contract with America, but we are open to accepting a contract from America. That contract surely begins with listening to people. My favorite thing to do is going door to door. It's my favorite thing in politics. Is there on the doorstep, you get to see in people's eyes what it is that they're really concerned about. That's what I just heard this afternoon. Very helpful. That's the way to keep in touch.
Thank you. Okay, the Bureau of Labor statistics show that South Carolina's unemployment rate hovers around 12%, and so many people have been without work for at least a year. What, if elected, what would you do in your role as a congressperson to bring more jobs to South Carolina? Why don't we begin with Mr. Lee?
What I do to bring more jobs to South Carolina? Well, first of all, I'm struggling to find constitutionally where the responsibility of Congress is to bring jobs to a particular state. I think from a federal level, the best thing we can do is get the government out of the way, particularly when we look at the burdens that we place on small business, which is the engine of our economy. Many of the problems as it relates to jobs have to do at the state level, and the states dealing with unfunded mandates and other regulation from the federal government. So the federal government really can't do anything to bring jobs to a particular state. And as a congressman, other than potentially some relationships and networking that I might have from my business contacts, and relationships with other congresspeople, there really isn't much as a congressman you can do personally to bring jobs to the state. But most of the problem, in my view, lies at the state level, where each state sets the conditions for business in their state. Here in South Carolina, there's some things I'd like to see at the state level done to make it more advantageous for business to come here to South Carolina.
Thank you. Senator Thomas?
This is one of my favorite subjects because I think it is the responsibility of a congressman to do everything he or she can do to bring jobs to the state and to his or her district. One of the things you can do locally is something I alluded to a little bit earlier. And we saw an example of this with Boeing. When Boeing was trying to come here, this is the latest version of Boeing with the Dreamliner, they had to make a contact with a federal judge because they were having trouble getting a proper contact with the Department of Commerce. That judge called a couple of state senators in the Lowcountry where they wanted to locate. 5 state senators met with Boeing executives and talked about the things that could be done to the advantage of Boeing, and they came. And we're going to see thousands of jobs over that. We're going to see a ripple effect over that. And if we're smart, we're going to have Boeing's plants up here when they do some expansions one day. That's why I went to the Boeing groundbreaking to make sure that there was somebody from the upstate that was there to meet those executives, because it was sort of closed out. And I was there, met the executives, got the cards, and as a matter of fact, delivered to Nigel Robertson at Channel 4. He asked me for a list of executives, and I was able to get him a list of the executives, and he got to do a wonderful inside kind of edition on Boeing. What can you do as a congressman? You can make sure that you're working with local representatives as well as federal representatives to provide as much incentives as possible to business. You want to have incentives that encourage business to develop nationwide.
Thank you, Senator Thomas.
In the state.
Representative Inglis?
We need to keep taxes down, regulation light, and get litigation down. Enact reasonable trade policies, and get the federal government to balance its budget. If we do those 5 things, the conditions will be right for job growth. I think we also need to figure out a way to break free of our addiction to oil. If we do that and reinvent our energy future, we can create a whole lot of jobs, especially here in the upstate. And here, Jim, I admit to a parochial interest. I am particularly interested in the upstate of South Carolina doing well, because this district has only 1 representative in Congress. We have 2 senators, we have 1 representative in Congress, in the House. And so my focus has been on this tremendous opportunity we've got with energy. It's proven out in jobs at Kemet here recently, and with 1,300 new jobs at Proterra, both of which I've been very involved with. So I'm very excited about our energy future, because we have this enormous concentration of engineers in the upstate, and with the help of those engineers, I really believe that this district can lead the nation out of this recession.
Dr. Jeffrey?